All right, welcome to another deep dive with us. Today we're going to be exploring something that's pretty much impossible to live without these days.
Interesting. Let me see if I can guess. Is it our phones?
You got it. Or, well, maybe more broadly, the internet. I mean, how much of our lives happen online now? We've got this fascinating essay that digs into all the ways the internet is shaping our world, and it goes way beyond the usual, pros and cons lists.
Right, beyond just like, is it good or bad? There's so much more to it than that.
Yeah, exactly. It really gets you thinking about the impact on everything from like healthcare to even social movements. I mean, would the Arab Spring have even happened without social media?
It's hard to say for sure. But, this essay makes a really strong argument that the internet isn't just a tool. It's actually reshaping our reality.
Yeah.
Like, think about it. It changes how we connect with people, how we find information, earn a living, heck, even receive healthcare now, too.
It's kind of mind-blowing when you really think about it. Like, the essay calls the internet a double-edged sword. It brings progress, but also problems.
Sure, it's got both sides.
Yeah.
The essay dives into a bunch of areas where the internet has become essential.
Like?
Well, the obvious things like communication, access to information, the economy, entertainment. It goes on and on and on.
I mean, you try going a day without it?
Exactly. Almost impossible, right?
I know. And the essay, it actually talks about some benefits I hadn't even considered before.
Oh, like what?
Like, how it's made knowledge so much more accessible. It talks about online libraries, educational platforms. I mean, theoretically, anyone with an internet connection can learn pretty much anything now.
Right. It's amazing when you think about it that way.
It is. It's like having the world's biggest library at your fingertips.
True. But that brings up another question, though, doesn't it?
What's that?
Like, how do we actually sift through all that information? Right. How do we know what's reliable, what's not? We're talking about a massive amount of information.
That's a good point. And speaking of connections, I was fascinated by the essay's part on global relationships.
Oh, yeah. How it's changed the way we interact across borders.
Yeah. Like, not just staying in touch with family who live far away, but working on projects with people from all over the world.
Okay.
Finding communities online, no matter where you are. It's amazing.
It is. It really is. It's like the whole world shrunk,
Exactly.
But I guess, does that come with its own set of problems, too? I mean, how do you build trust with people you've never met in person?
That's true. There's a lot to consider there. And then something else that caught my eye, and I wonder if you've ever thought about this, listener. What about telemedicine?
Oh, interesting.
Like, imagine seeing a doctor without actually going to a doctor's office.
Right. Remotely.
Yeah. The essay specifically talks about diagnoses and consultations all happening online. I don't know what you think about that, listener. Could you see yourself doing that?
It's definitely got potential. Imagine if you live somewhere really rural or had trouble getting around.
Right.
Suddenly, you've got access to specialists no matter where you are.
It seems almost futuristic, but it's happening now.
It is. But we got to think about the downsides, too.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, how do you make sure everyone's information stays private?
Yeah.
Does healthcare lose something if it's all through a screen? And, that digital divide we're always talking about.
Right. Not everyone has good internet access.
Yeah, got to make sure everyone benefits, not just some people.
Exactly. You're right. Like we were saying before, there are always two sides to every coin. The essay doesn't shy away from the not-so-great stuff about the internet either.
Yeah, there are some real downsides.
One that really stood out to me was what the essay calls the privacy paradox.
What's that?
It's the idea that, okay, we get all this amazing stuff from being online, but we're giving up a lot of personal information in the process, right?
Well, like our data, our preferences.
Yeah, it's all being tracked. Makes you wonder what it's all being used for.
Right. Makes you think twice about what you share online, doesn't it?
It does. The essay talks about how, social media, search engines, they're gathering all this data about us.
Yeah.
And, I mean, yeah, sometimes that's good. It can personalize things. But sometimes it feels kind of creepy,
I know what you mean. It's like, where's the line between convenience and, feeling like you're being watched?
Exactly. And speaking of things that can make you feel uneasy, the essay also gets into mental health.
Oh, that's a big one.
It is. It talks about how social media can, make you feel like you're never good enough.
Right. All those perfect pictures, perfect lives.
Yeah, it can get to you. The essay actually links this stuff to, things like anxiety and depression.
Especially for younger people, right?
Yeah.
They're more vulnerable to that kind of pressure.
Yeah, definitely. It's a real concern. And then there's that other issue, the digital divide. The essay dives into that too.
That's more than just, who can get online and who can't.
Yeah. It talks about how those who don't have access, they miss out on so much education, job opportunities.
Information, too.
Right. It creates this whole other level of inequality.
Exactly. It's a societal problem we can't just ignore.
And it shows how technology on its own isn't enough. We need to address these bigger issues if we want the internet to truly benefit everyone.
Absolutely.
So, we've talked about some pretty heavy stuff here, the good and the bad, but the essay doesn't just leave us with a bunch of problems.
Oh, good. Because that'd be pretty depressing.
Right. It actually offers some solutions, too, some things we can do to make things better.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. I'm definitely interested in what they suggest.
Yeah, it's nice to know we're not totally helpless. Like, one thing the essay really stresses is cybersecurity.
Oh, that's huge.
Right. It sounds kind of basic, but the essay says strong passwords, being aware of scams, that stuff really makes a difference.
I think it's easy to forget how important that is. Like, we do so much online now, banking, shopping, everything.
It's all vulnerable if we're not careful.
Exactly. And then the essay talks about digital literacy.
Oh, yeah. Being able to, think critically about what we see online.
Knowing how to evaluate information, spot fake news, that kind of thing.
It's almost like a survival skill these days. What do you think, listener? Have you ever fallen for something fake online? It's pretty easy to do. The essay also says, individual actions are great, but we need bigger changes too.
Oh, like what?
Like, it talks about governments, organizations, they need to step up too, put policies in place to protect people online. What do you think, listener? Is that the answer? More rules? Or is it more about personal responsibility?
It's tough, isn't it? Probably takes a bit of both. We need people to be smart about what they do online, but we also need some safeguards in place.
Makes sense. The essay uses a really interesting example, actually, to illustrate this point.
Oh, what's that?
It talks about e-commerce, like how much shopping do we all do online now?
Right, it's so convenient.
And the essay points out that's a huge shift. Small businesses can suddenly reach customers all over the world. We can buy stuff from, anywhere.
It's amazing how much it's changed things, but is that always a good thing? You know what I mean?
What do you mean?
Well, think about all the shipping involved, the environmental impact.
Oh, right, yeah.
And then there's the ethics of it all. Are we supporting good labor practices? Or are we just, getting cheaper stuff at the expense of someone else?
It's a good point. It's easy to forget about the bigger picture when you're just clicking add to cart.
It is. And the way we work is changing too,
Oh, right. The essay talks about the gig economy.
All those freelance platforms like Upwork, Fiverr,
It seems like everyone's doing side hustles now.
Right. It offers so much flexibility. Work from anywhere, set your own hours, be your own boss.
But is it sustainable long term? You don't get the same benefits, the same security as a traditional job.
Yeah, it's a trade-off for sure. It's
Yeah.
kind of redefining what work even means. I wonder if this is just the beginning.
It's definitely something to think about. The essay also revisits healthcare, that telemedicine thing we were talking about.
Oh, right.
It really gets into the possibilities, especially for people who live far from hospitals or have trouble getting around.
Makes a lot of sense for them, right?
Yeah, having access to specialists without having to travel, that could be huge.
Definitely. But how do we make sure it's done right?
Good question.
Everyone needs access to the technology. We got to protect people's privacy, too. And I just wonder if something's lost when healthcare becomes, totally virtual.
Yeah, that human connection is important. It seems like with any new technology, there's always this balance to figure out. The potential is there, but we have to be careful, too.
Absolutely. It's not just about, progress at any cost. We got to make sure it serves people, not the other way around.
Exactly. And speaking of serving people, I thought the essay's part on social movements was really interesting. It talks about how online platforms can give a voice to people who might not otherwise be heard.
Like marginalized communities, activists.
Yeah, it talks about organizing protests, mobilizing support for causes, all online.
It's incredible, really, how much power it gives people.
It is. And, it's easy to get caught up in all the negative stuff about the internet.
Oh, yeah, there's plenty of that.
But this reminds us it can be a force for good, too.
For sure. It's all about how we use it.
Yeah, connecting with others, raising awareness, making a difference. And then there's online education. The essay touches on that, too, which I thought was cool.
Oh, right. Like all the online courses, virtual classrooms, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. It's so easy to learn new things now, no matter where you are, what your background is.
It's pretty amazing. But again, it comes back to that digital divide, doesn't it?
Right. What good are all these online resources if people can't access them?
Exactly. Got to make sure everyone have the opportunity, the tools they need. Otherwise, it's just another form of inequality.
It's a good reminder that technology alone isn't the answer. But for those who do have access, the potential is huge. Imagine personalized learning, lifelong learning, all at your fingertips.
It's pretty amazing when you think about it that way.
It is, but of course we can't just ignore the negative stuff, like the essay also talks about misinformation, cybercrime, all that.
Yeah, that's the dark side of the internet.
It's scary to think how quickly false information can spread.
Mm-hmm. And how much damage it can do.
Right. The essay talks about how algorithms, the things that decide what we see online,
Yeah.
they can actually make things worse because they prioritize engagement, even if it's, with stuff that's not true.
Oh, right. It's all about keeping us scrolling.
Yeah, clicking, sharing, all that. So how do we protect ourselves? The essay says we need to become better digital citizens.
What does that even mean?
It's about being more critical of what we see online. Learning how to evaluate sources, recognize bias, fact-check things.
Sounds like we need to add digital detective to our resumes.
Seriously.
Yeah.
But it's important. We can't just blindly trust everything we see online.
You're telling me? I've fallen for my fair share of clickbait. It's easy to get tricked.
I know. And the more we learn to think critically, the harder it is for misinformation to spread.
It's like building a defense against the bad stuff.
Right. So, this conversation has been pretty eye-opening. The internet is such a complex thing.
It is. There's no easy answers. It can be amazing, but it can also be, kind of dangerous.
Yeah, we have to be both excited about the possibilities and cautious about the risks.
For sure. It's like walking a tightrope, Got to stay balanced.
I like that. And I think that's what this deep dive has been all about, helping us find that balance as we navigate this crazy digital world.
Exactly. It's a journey, We're all figuring it out as we go.
Right. And it's a journey we're all on together. What do you think, listener? Are you ready for the next part of the journey? We'll explore even more about the internet's impact on humanity.
It's kind of wild to think about how the internet started, right? Just a way to share information. And now it's this massive thing, this force that shapes pretty much every aspect of our lives.
I know, right? It's evolved so much so quickly.
And this deep dive, it's really highlighted how, the internet, it's like a reflection of us, humanity. All the good, the bad, it's all there.
Yeah, it's like a digital mirror in a way, isn't it?
It is. It shows our creativity, our ingenuity, but also our darker impulses, too.
Yeah, like all the good stuff, all the bad stuff. It's all amplified online.
Right. But the essay, it makes this point that we're not just, helpless in all this, We have a choice.
Oh, that's good. Because it can feel kind of overwhelming sometimes.
It can. But we're not just passengers being swept along by this digital tide. We can choose how we engage online.
Mm-hmm. What we consume, how we contribute. Exactly. It's about making conscious choices.
Right. Being aware of the impact our choices have.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to spend an hour on social media, but then I'm going to go for a walk, read a book, something offline,
Yeah, finding that balance. And for me, one of the biggest takeaways from this essay was digital literacy. It's becoming so important.
I've been hearing that term more and more. What does it actually mean, though?
It's about being able to think critically about what we see online, being able to tell what's real, what's fake, recognizing bias, evaluating sources, all that.
Oh, so it's not just about knowing how to use a computer.
No, it's more about how to use the internet safely and responsibly.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
It's almost like, a superpower these days, being able to navigate all this information, all this noise, and make sense of it.
It is a superpower. It's like having X-ray vision to see through the BS.
Exactly. It's about taking back control. Not letting the internet control us, but us controlling how we use it.
I like that. We need to reclaim our power online. We get to decide how we spend our time, what we consume, who we connect with. It's our choice.
Yeah. And the essay talks about balance, too. It's easy to get sucked in, spend hours scrolling,
Oh, tell me about it. It's like a black hole sometimes.
But we need to disconnect, recharge, find that equilibrium between our online lives and our offline lives.
That's a good point. It's not about going off the grid completely. It's about finding a healthy balance.
Exactly. I love connecting with people online, but I also make sure I spend time with friends and family in person,
Yeah, that makes sense. It's about making sure the internet enhances our lives, not takes over our lives.
Right. And we can't forget, the internet can be a force for good, too.
Oh, yeah. It's not all doom and gloom.
The essay talks about how it can connect us with people from all over the world, support causes we believe in, even help solve global problems.
I love that. It's easy to get bogged down in the negativity, but there's so much potential for positive change, too.
It's about using this incredible tool we have to make the world a better place.
Exactly. We can use it to build bridges, share ideas, inspire each other. It's all about how we choose to use it.
Yeah, the choice is ours. The internet isn't inherently good or bad.
It's a reflection of us.
Exactly. It reflects our values, our choices, and we have the power to shape its future. We can make it more informed, more connected, more just.
I love that. It's a powerful reminder that we're not powerless. We can make a difference.
Yeah, we can. So, listener, I hope this deep dive is giving you some things to think about.
It's been a really interesting exploration.
We've explored the bright spots and the dark corners of the internet's impact on humanity.
And we've learned that it's a complex issue with no easy answers.
Right. But one thing's for sure, the internet is here to stay. And it's up to us to shape its future.
Absolutely. We need to keep questioning, keep learning, keep pushing for a better digital world.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And listener, don't forget to check out the show notes for links to the essay we talked about and other resources.
Yeah, keep the conversation going.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the internet's impact on humanity. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.